Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Worldview Channel 247. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we bring you the latest developments in the rapidly escalating crisis between Iran and Israel and how global powers are responding. In recent hours, Tehran has issued a stern warning to both Washington and Paris: do not interfere in Iran's military operations against Israel. Iranian officials have declared that if Western nations continue to support Israel, they will strike Western warships and bases across the region. Despite this, the United Kingdom has not ruled out intercepting any missile or drone attacks aimed at Israel. On June 14th, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed that the United Kingdom is deploying fighter jets and other military assets to the Middle East. When asked about the Iranian threats against Western bases, Prime Minister Sunak stated, "I will always make the right decisions for the security of the United Kingdom. We are sending assets to the region, including combat aircraft, as a precautionary measure." He added that he had spoken by phone with several world leaders immediately after Israel launched airstrikes on Iran, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump. Downing Street later confirmed that RAF combat aircraft and aerial refueling tankers have been dispatched to the region to reinforce contingency plans should tensions continue to escalate. These deployments began on the morning of June 13th following Israel's strikes on Iran's nuclear program and senior military leadership in Tehran. When pressed on whether British forces would take part in intercepting Iranian missiles or unmanned aerial vehicles bound for Israel, Prime Minister Sunak declined to provide specifics, saying that operational decisions are classified and the situation remains fluid. Defense sources report that, as of now, the UK has not engaged in any direct military action or provided assistance to Israel in intercepting Iranian attacks. International security analysts are urging Western capitals to take Tehran's threats seriously. Dr. Buku Oselik of the Royal United Services Institute warns the Iranian leadership perceives itself to be in existential peril and is eager to shed its image as a paper tiger. Meanwhile, Chinese state news agency Xinhua reports that on the evening of June 14th, an Israeli airstrike targeted a residence in Sana'a, Yemen, purportedly the site of a secret meeting of Houthi senior commanders. According to sources close to the Houthi movement, security forces quickly sealed off the area after the raid. Local residents reported discovering at least 10 charred bodies at the scene. Opposition media aligned with the Houthis claim the meeting was presided over by Mohammed Abdul Karim al-Gamari, head of the Supreme Political Council and Chief of Staff, along with Abdul Malik al-Houthi, chairman of the Supreme Revolutionary Committee, Muhammad Ali al-Houthi, and Major General Abu Ali al-Hakim, director of military intelligence. The Houthi movement, which controls much of northern Yemen, has not yet issued an official statement regarding the attack. However, Houthi officials have strongly condemned both Israeli and Iranian strikes and vowed to intensify long-range missile attacks against Israel. Back in Iran, state media reports that 2 deputy chiefs of staff of Iran's armed forces were killed in the Israeli attack. Their identities and the exact time of their deaths remain unclear, but the announcement was made on June 14th. Reuters reports that Israel's bombardment on June 13th resulted in at least 78 fatalities, including senior military figures, marking the largest Israeli operation against Iran to date. The Islamic Republic news agency ISNA quoted spokesman Behrouz Kamandadi of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, who confirmed only minimal damage at the Fordo enrichment facility. "We had relocated the bulk of equipment and materials in advance, so there was no severe damage or risk of contamination," he stated. According to the Israel Defense Forces, on the night of June 13th, the Israeli Air Force struck dozens of targets, including surface-to-air missile installations, in an effort to degrade Iran's air defenses around Tehran. For the first time in the conflict, Israeli jets traveled over 1,500 kilometers to engage anti-aircraft systems near Iran's capital. Iranian media reported that Mehrabad International Airport in Tehran was also attacked, hitting a fighter hangar. Images from state-run IRNA showed smoke rising near the runway. Civilian aviation authorities said no damage occurred to the runway or main terminal, but all flights were suspended until further notice. The United States has confirmed that U.S. air defense systems and a naval vessel helped Israel intercept Iranian ballistic missiles launched in retaliation for the Israeli strikes. The U.S. deployed ground-based Patriot batteries and THAAD terminal high-altitude area defense systems in the Middle East to guard against Iran's missile salvos. A U.S. Navy official told reporters that the destroyer USS Thomas Hudner shot down several Iranian missiles in the eastern Mediterranean. Another destroyer is en route to the region, ready to provide additional defense if ordered by the White House. U.S. fighter jets are also patrolling Middle Eastern airspace to protect American personnel and installations. On June 14th, President Trump convened a meeting of the National Security Council to discuss potential responses. Later that day, Iran reiterated that not only military bases but also American, British, and French vessels would be legitimate targets if they aided Israel in intercepting Iranian missiles and drones. President Trump has repeatedly assured that the U.S. will defend Israel. U.S. officials quoted anonymously by the press confirmed that American forces helped shoot down Iranian drones and missiles as they approached Israeli territory. French President Emmanuel Macron announced on June 13th that France would assist in protecting Israel. In contrast, the British government has stated it will not provide direct military support to Israel, emphasizing Prime Minister Sunak's call for de-escalation. Although the majority of Iranian missiles and UAVs were intercepted before reaching their targets, Tehran's public threats on June 14th represent a high-stakes gamble that risks drawing Western forces into direct conflict. At the UN Security Council session on June 13th, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield warned that any hostile act against U.S. citizens, diplomatic personnel, or infrastructure would bring tragic consequences for Iran. Earlier on June 14th, Israeli aircraft launched a concentrated bombing campaign over Tehran. In response, Iran fired multiple ballistic missiles and drones on June 13th. As the conflict entered its second day, Israel appeared determined to disable Iran's nuclear capabilities, while Iran vowed severe retaliation for what it called an unprovoked aggression. In a rare appeal for calm, Pope Francis urged leaders in the Middle East to refrain from further hostilities and return to dialogue. The pontiff stated that no nation should threaten another's existence, and he called for a collective commitment to peace. The ongoing reports of conflict between Israel and Iran have sparked global concern. The situation in both countries has deteriorated sharply. At this precarious juncture, we urge everyone to remain calm and act responsibly. We must all recommit to building a safer world free from the specter of nuclear threat. When he took office for his second term in January, President Trump pledged to end America's wars and leave behind a legacy of peace and unity. Yet 6 months later, missiles are flying across the Middle East following Israel's strike on Iran, raising fears of a full-scale regional war that could draw U.S. forces into direct combat. These exchanges are testing the president's promise to be a peacemaker. Dr. Sabina Chitabasi, vice president at the Quincy Institute, a Washington think tank advocating diplomacy, says there's a profound sense of betrayal and anger among many Americans. People have turned against the idea of the U.S. joining or supporting any foreign war. They see these endless conflicts as a major reason for Republican presidents' domestic policy failures, she observes. Prominent conservative commentator Tucker Carlson has argued that the U.S. should not back Prime Minister Netanyahu's militaristic agenda, warning that deeper involvement risks creating a next generation of terrorists and could result in thousands of American casualties. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Rand Paul has cautioned against war with Iran, criticizing the neoconservative hawks in Washington. On social media, he wrote, "The American people are fundamentally opposed to endless wars." And they made that clear by electing Donald Trump in 2024. I urge President Trump to continue putting America first and resist involvement in another foreign conflict. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene likewise posted that she opposes strikes on Iran and has urged President Trump to refrain from attacking Iran based on unverified Israeli claims that Tehran is close to acquiring nuclear weapons. Indeed, U.S. intelligence, as stated by Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, in March, continues to assess that Iran is not currently building a nuclear weapon. Just hours before Israel's June 13th air raids on Iranian military bases, nuclear sites, and residential areas, President Trump told reporters he had been forewarned of the operation, but did not indicate whether he had sanctioned or vetoed it. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna decried Israel's unilateral action, calling for restraint. President Trump blamed Iran for the crisis and called on Tehran to heed his appeals for a nuclear deal. On June 14th, the sixth round of nuclear talks between U.S. and Iranian delegations was scheduled to begin in Oman. But with hostilities now underway, the prospects for diplomacy appear to be fading. That is the latest on this rapidly evolving story. Stay with us for continuing coverage here on Worldview Channel 247. I'm Jack. Thanks for watching and good night.